Hello, everyone. This is Holly Chantal, your lead Mad Brand scientist and the president of the Land of Brand, and you have reached the Land of Brand LOBoratory. This is a lab where we meet every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern, and we talk about different topics in building your online brand. So we talk about all kinds of business building topics, give you strategies, tips, case studies, things that you, today we're going to be doing a business tool spotlight. So things that you need in your business, as well as answering questions for you as you begin to grow your business. And this is a collaborative forum, and it's totally free. So if you have questions, you have topics you'd like to see, you can definitely let me know. Let's go ahead and move over to the presentation so that you can see my screen. Today we're going to be talking about Zoom webinar platform, which we're using today, obviously. All right, so again, if you've never joined us before, we meet every Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern. Membership to the LOBoratory is totally free. You can register at thelandofbrand.com, and I send out weekly reminders of what the topic is and how to access it. Replays will be available on the Land of Brand blog. One of the categories is the LOBoratory replays. You can check out past topics there. They are also on our YouTube channel. If you have a topic or a question, you can email Holly at thelandofbrand.com. And also feel free to chat and ask questions here. Even though there are replays, I love to see you guys live because that's where we get the real nitty-gritty on what you need. So as we're talking about a topic, obviously questions are going to come up and you can get them answered real time. Plus, it's nice to know that someone else is on the other side of this camera, because as I was talking to someone yesterday, sometimes when you are, a solopreneur and you're doing online presentations, it can sometimes feel like you're talking to you're talking in a vacuum. So it's always lovely to see you guys and get your participation. All right, so today is Business Tool Spotlight. We do these once a month, and today's spotlight is Zoom, which is the platform that we're using today for this webinar. So what we're going to talk about today is how webinars will help your business Zoom. Under the hood, features you need on your webinar platform. So we'll talk a little bit about how to choose the right platform for you. And then we'll also talk about Zoom itself and how it fits the bill and how it compares to other popular platforms as it relates to the online solopreneur, particularly coaches, speakers, marketers, that kind of thing. So why webinars? Why do we do these crazy things where we're talking into these cameras and we can't actually see people? Well, a webinar allows you to engage your audience in multiple ways. So even in this webinar, you guys are seeing me on video, you're seeing the slide presentation. I could be showing you, we could share a screen and I could be showing you websites that we're reviewing. There's a lot of opportunities here. There's a chat, there's a Q&A, there's a polling feature where I could, get the feedback from the group on a particular question. There's a lot of different ways that we can engage and really kind of work together and collaborate as a larger group. And that is why webinars are fantastic, because we're living in an online world. I don't have the group of you sitting in my living room or sitting in my office actually talking to me. So the more we can interact online and virtually, the more you and I are going to get to know each other, and the more fun we can have, the more we can learn, and the easier it's going to be for you to build your business. And the world is your oyster in how you want to present. Like I just said, there's all these different features that webinars have that something like a teleseminar does not. So the difference between a webinar and a teleseminar, for those of you that don't know, is a teleseminar has only an audio component. So people dial in through phone. You can only hear the presenter or whoever's unmuted. It's very anonymous. It can be a little disconcerting if you don't know always who you're hearing, if you can't see them. You have to follow along and take notes yourself because you're not actually seeing anything on the screen. So when you're doing a webinar, you have these different medias that you can use. So you can cater to the visual learner as well as the auditory learner versus just listening by phone. The other cool thing about webinars is that you have the option, typically, of just listening by phone if, let's say, you're not at your computer. So that's one thing that Zoom does have. Some of you may be on the road right now, you're not able to look at the slides, you want to catch the replay later, you can just dial in by phone and just listen. If you hear that cute squeaking, my 5-week-old is next to me sleeping, and he's having little puppy dreams. So webinars build trust and allow you to showcase your knowledge to likely buyers. So they're a great sales tool, great for you to talk about your topic of choice, talk about your programs, and make an offer. And we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like later. So webinars are a great way to do that. And you get mucho interaction, plus they're fun. Webinars are a ton of fun. As you guys, if you've been on these webinars for a while, I did the LOBoratory for 3 years and I took a year off. And I missed you guys so much that I had to start up again because I was missing a big piece of interaction in my business and getting a little lonely. So webinars are a great way to engage your audience and have some fun with people. All right, so what types of webinars are there? Because, I told you what a webinar was, but there's a lot of different ways that you can use them in your business. One of them is community webinars like this. So just having a weekly, monthly, quarterly meeting place for people in your tribe to come and hang out, come learn from you, come learn from each other, ask questions, that kind of thing. Free webinars. These are typically promotional. They're like a free training. You guys see these a lot, especially when you're looking at those big JV launches and you're learning how to do something and you're getting content, as well as becoming aware of an offer that could take you deeper. Or you might be doing these kinds of webinars where you are teaching on a topic and then offering the opportunity to go further and deeper and work with you on the webinar itself. Paid webinar training. So sometimes your topic is so juicy that you can actually just charge for that one-off webinar, which is different than courses, which is next. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. Puppy dreams were escalating. Come on, buddy, you're fine. All right, hold on. He is waking up, and my trick here is I had something queued up on my phone. And you're okay, bud. All right. If that fails, then we will pick them up. All right, so courses. Courses are different than paid webinars because a paid webinar is more of a one-off thing where your audience is purchasing a particular topic and you're just doing one webinar. A course is kind of like a paid webinar in that, people are paying for it. You might run it by webinar, but it's typically sequential. Like there's multiple weeks or multiple modules and sessions. And then also along with the course or the webinar, there might be handouts and exercises and homework and that kind of thing. So it can be a little bit more robust. But using a platform like this is a great way to run your course. Private meetings. So a lot of coaches will run their client calls through a teleseminar line so that it can be recorded. More and more people are using webinar lines because you can see each other often, or you can share a screen. When I do my web copy workshops where I'm helping my website design clients write their copy, we typically share a screen so that they can see, we can review their copy together, they can see the changes I'm making, we can look at the comments, and we can do things real time versus us looking at the document separately and trying to figure out, okay, what are you looking at? What changes are you making? And trying to take notes at the same time. It just makes it easier. So webinar platforms are fantastic for that as well. because you can kind of do all those things at once, either one-off or as a group. And we're going to talk a little bit about how Zoom kind of has flexibility to do that really, really well, either with a group or one-on-one. So under the hood, let's look at some features of Zoom as a webinar platform, because Zoom is fairly new. I only really started hearing about it really just a couple of months ago. Obviously, GoToWebinar has been around forever. WebinarJam came out in the last, I think, 3 years, and Zoom seems to be the new hot kid on the block. And I just recently started using it in the last probably 2 or 3 months. And it has a lot of really nifty features that I'm finding all kinds of different ways to use it for. And I'm actually able to cancel some other pieces of software that I was using. So registration. This is really neat. So typically when you register for a webinar, you register for that webinar. You're given a unique ID, and that's it. Obviously, Zoom allows you to do that, but they also have a you could do a recurring webinar, or I have like my own unique ID that I can just use at any time, kind of like a teleconference line or teleseminar line where you have your own unique PIN number. Zoom has that as well, except it's for webinars and teleseminars. Why is this cool? Well, you guys are in the LOBoratory. Wouldn't it stink if you had to register every single week in order to get access? Yeah, kind of, because you'd forget, you might not get the replay. You know, I'd have to just keep, reminding everyone to re-register. It just gets annoying. But this way, I was able to set up the webinar once. It's a recurring webinar that happens every week, and the ID stays the same. This way, when you register, you're given one link, one phone number, one PIN number, and you can put it right in your calendar, and it's always there. So even if you missed the reminder email in the morning, if you have it on your calendar, then you can still attend without actually having the access info sent that day. So this is really, really important if you're going to be doing some kind of ongoing community call, courses. It works really well, that kind of thing. So being able to have that flexibility of being either one-off or ongoing is a good option. Zoom also offers cloud-hosted replays, or you can record to your computer. So when you start the webinar, and you can have this happen automatically, it's a setting, the webinar will automatically be recorded, or you can click record, and it goes into the cloud. So what that means is that it's recorded to the Zoom servers, and then you're given a link that I can then send to all the viewers if they wanted to watch the replay. It also separates the audio out for you, so I can also just send a link for the MP3. People can download that, put it on their iPod, listen to it in the car, that kind of thing. Or you can record to your computer. This is nice because the cloud is limited in the amount of space it holds. You can buy more space, but you're not going to want to have all of your webinars on it. What I like is if I record it to my computer, then I don't have to download the whole file because it's already there. So what I do is record it to my computer, and then I can go straight to YouTube, upload the file right there. Don't have to do any conversion or anything crazy that takes a lot of time. So I can just upload it to YouTube, take the link, throw it in a blog post, and then I keep the webinar replays on the blog. Obviously, because this is a community call, that makes sense. But if you're doing a promotional webinar or some kind of course, that kind of thing, then doing the cloud-hosted replays will work great for you because you can just send the link to your participants. Other features are the different media it allows. So people can dial in audio only. They can just listen in by phone. You can do video and audio. So that means, audio only as in I can just be talking into the webinar without the camera. Video and audio, obviously you have the camera, you can see me as I'm just like this little box up in the corner. So I can turn that on or off. Also when participants talk, you can also choose to show their video or not, which is kind of cool. Screen sharing, right now I have 2 monitors. So I have my main laptop, and then I have a second monitor, which I'm looking at you guys in. and I'm sharing the entire screen, but I could also choose to share just a window, just one, like if I wanted to play video into the webinar, I could just share the video screen and make that full screen and play that video for you guys. Also have the whiteboard feature. So let's say we're collaborating on something and we want to, you know, draw it out, some kind of mind map, or I wanted to, you know, I can do annotations. So if we're looking at a website, I can draw on the website and kind of show you exactly what I'm looking at, that kind of thing. You can also share from an iPhone or an iPad. So if I wanted to run the slides from my iPad, I could do that. That would be great if you don't have two monitors. I like to have two monitors for webinars because I can have my presentation on one and I can have the dashboard on the other to be able to, you know, monitor questions, see participants, that kind of thing. So if you don't have that, but you have a phone or an iPad, you could run the presentation on that screen and keep your dashboard on your computer. And I already said this, but it can play video into the feed. Interaction through Q&A and chat, so we can get viewer participation. They can either chat with each other or you can send questions that are directly for me or use the presenter. Integrates with Infusionsoft, Entreport, and Zapier. This is really important because you want all your software to talk to each other. So it has native integration to Infusionsoft and Entreport, and then Zapier is a service that connects a lot of different types of software to each other. So Zapier would allow you to connect to Aweber or MailChimp or whatever it is that you're using. It kind of acts as the middleman. So that is a great feature that, you know, you can make sure that everyone's registered for your webinar. It's also added to your list, that kind of thing. Breakout rooms. So breakout rooms are not necessarily for webinars, and I'm going to tell you about what that means in a moment. But Zoom does have the ability to do breakout rooms. This is really cool for community meetings or you know, workshops, courses that you're teaching. You could divvy up your participants into different groups and have them work on something. So whether that be, you know, they need to answer a question or they're working through an exercise and you want them to do some like small group coaching, that kind of thing. That's just a really neat feature that I've only seen on a couple different platforms. One second, let me see if I can get him settled. All right. So how much does it cost? The cool thing about Zoom, he's not going to cooperate. I'm afraid that if I pick him up, it's not going to help because he's still kind of sleeping. He's just fussing in his sleep. Okay, so what's cool about Zoom is that it's something that you can grow into. So it starts off free, and with Zoom, there's two different levels. There's meetings and there's webinars. Meetings are up to 50 people, and it's more intimate. It's basically everyone's a presenter. So everyone's video is showing, you can chat, everyone's unmuted, and it's great for collaboration. I've seen people use this for like doing write-ins or you know, accountability calls, those kinds of things, because everyone can see each other. It's great because everyone can collaborate with each other, and you're basically just acting as the host, and you know, everyone's kind of doing their thing. So the free plan just has the meetings level, so up to 50 people, 40 minutes, and the features are a little bit more limited. And you can see this on the website, which is zoom.us, which is kind of an unusual URL. $14.99 a month for meetings only. That's like the premium version. Has a lot more features, unlimited minutes for your meetings, still 50 participants. And then for webinars, then it bumps up to $54.99. You can have up to 100 viewers for that. And obviously there are higher levels that have more viewers. So what's the difference between a meeting and a webinar? Well, a meeting, like I said, is more collaborative with all the people that are participating. Webinars are more of a broadcast. So you guys are watching the webinar, you can chat, you can Q&A, but I'm not seeing your video. You guys aren't unmuted. You're just kind of watching what's going on. Now I can have you guys raise your hand and unmute you, and it will show your video. So I can, get audience participation that way, but it requires me actually promoting you to a panelist and then muting you manually. So there's a lot of flexibility here, which is really cool. So what are the downsides? Well, there's a lot of features, so it can be a little confusing. I'm still learning the platform. It's not completely intuitive, so there's a lot of different options. Some of the menus are hidden a little bit. So it's something that has a little bit of a learning curve, which can be a downside. But once you've run it a couple of times, it becomes much easier. And they also have fantastic support. So I was on chat with them earlier, solving a problem, and they're very, very responsive. They actually called me as we were chatting because there was, it just made it easier. They're like, you know what, let me just call you. And so that's really good. And the only thing I really don't like is that the chat and the Q&A aren't automatically viewable for participants. They have to go to the bottom of the screen and actually click on it. Or in something like GoToWebinar, they have like this whole dashboard to themselves where they see everything. It's all right there. So those are the only two downsides that I found so far. Like I said, I've been using it for a couple months. I've used it for my paid courses, LOBoratory calls. I haven't used it for my actual client meetings yet, but I might start doing that soon. So let's look at two other popular platforms so you can kind of see some of the pros and cons. So we're going to look at GoToWebinar and WebinarJam. So GoToWebinar I used many, many moons ago, so things may have changed. So if anyone has other input, you can definitely chime in. I find that GoToWebinar is definitely more user-friendly for participants. I've been on a lot of GoToWebinar webinars. Just having the whole dashboard right there just makes it really easy. The disadvantages are, I feel like GoToWebinar is pretty expensive for a limited number of viewers. That's why I started looking. I didn't go straight to GoToWebinar when I was planning on signing back up for webinar software, because I needed, every now and then I have webinars that have 400 or 500 people on them, but most of the time, we're looking at 20 to 30 people on a webinar. Like these community calls, like they're really small, and I don't want to be paying an arm and a leg for such a small webinar. And also, GoToWebinar is known to be buggy. It's been around forever, but I still see on a day-to-day basis just people having a lot of problems when they're running, a lot of tech glitches when they're running their webinars. And to be fair, any piece of software is going to be buggy at some point. It just seems that GoToWebinar is kind of known for being buggy. The other really popular thing that's out there right now is WebinarJam. I used that for a couple years, and I actually did a very similar webinar about similar webinar to this, a LOBoratory call about WebinarJam back when that came out, because that's what I was using at the time, and I was loving it. Since then, I've kind of fallen out of love with it in a couple different ways, only because I've found better options, basically. So advantages, WebinarJam is made for sales. So if you're doing a lot of sales webinars, promotions, launches, that kind of thing, WebinarJam might be your jam. Why is it made for sales? Well, you can have pre-recorded segments. So you can record your presentation and then just play it into the feed, which is kind of cool. So if you have a presentation that sells and works, just play that into the feed. Then you don't have to worry about the fudge factor. You can display an offer in the webinar itself. So I can actually just click the button. It'll give you a buy now button. Great for calls to action. I can also redirect all my viewers to a particular URL. So I can send everyone right to the sales page, which makes things easier. So if you say a URL and then everyone's like, what was that? And then it becomes this huge distraction. I don't have to do that. You can just send everyone to the URL manually. Built-in follow-up based on participation. So WebinarJam, this is kind of a pro and a con. They have a built-in registration system, and then it has an autoresponder that connects to it. that will send out different autoresponders based on if they attended, if they didn't attend, if they dropped off halfway through. So it has a lot of customization there. The reason why I think it's a con, and this is actually one of the reasons why I've moved away from it, is because it's not brandable. All of the registration templates, all of the email templates, they all look like WebinarJam branding. It's just very, not very pretty. And as you guys know, being a branding person, you know, things have to be pretty. They have to look like the land of brand. Otherwise, I feel like it's just not delivering on that experience that people have come to know and expect from us. WebinarJam is cheap. It's only a couple $100 a year, which is great. Uploads directly to YouTube. So WebinarJam actually runs through Google Hangouts. So when you do a webinar, it's live on Google+, it's live on YouTube, and then the replay goes directly to YouTube. It doesn't necessarily have to be like public all the time, but it does, this is one of the disadvantages that we'll talk about, it does run publicly when you are live on the webinar. And the other cool thing, unlimited capacity. So there's no like only 100 viewers or, you know, you can only get 25 people on it. You can have as many people as you want. So that's definitely an advantage. Disadvantages. So those are a lot of advantages. WebinarJam sounds pretty darn cool, and it is. The disadvantages, there's only 2 of them, and they're huge. One is lag time. So there is a lag between me talking and you seeing. So what that means is if you ask a question of the audience, you're going to have to wait 30 seconds to a minute for them to actually hear it. And then you're going to have to wait for them to think about an answer and respond. Meanwhile, you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs. There's ways to get around that. So asking a question and then delivering more content and then going back for the answers, which is something that I used to do. But it's a little frustrating if you want to have a lot of interaction. You also can't run courses that way. So WebinarJam is strictly a broadcast tool, which means that if you want to be doing other things, you're going to need another piece of software. Privacy. Privacy is also huge. Because it's run on Google Hangouts, when you're on live, it's public. So if you have a paid webinar, anyone that's on your Google Plus account can see it. Again, not great for courses. So WebinarJam is something that I would totally recommend if you're doing launches or promotional webinars. But if you want to be running more intimate courses, doing paid programs, need interaction and engagement, then something like Zoom or GoToWebinar might be more for you. Excuse me. So conclusions, with so many different ways to use webinars, the more flexible the software, the better. So, you know, for me, it's nice to not have to have a teleseminar platform and a webinar platform and a course delivery, like all these different things. It's nice to have it all in one platform. Cuts down on costs. The right webinar software can create more engagement and intimacy with your audience. So being able to interact with each other, being able to, you know, have all those sweet features is a huge plus when it comes to building that relationship and building trust with your audience. Zoom itself is feature rich, and it's something that anyone can grow into. So if you're not ready for the whole kit and caboodle, it's $54 a month for a webinar. You know, you can start off free, you can start off with the $14.99. You know, if you wanted to just use it to run courses, that kind of thing, it's something that it will grow with you, which is really definitely a plus. Because I know when I was starting out, you know, paying $50 a month for a webinar platform when I might be doing webinars, you know, once every couple of months just really wasn't feasible. So this way, you know, you can still go out and run your course for free or $14.99 a month without having to buy like this really robust piece of software. So if you guys have any questions about that, you can type them into the chat. It's at the bottom of your screen. If you click on the chat or the Q&A box, they will open up and I can see them. I don't see anything right now. So I'm going to move on to what are we going to talk about next week? So next week, we're going to talk about how to target multiple audiences with the trickle-down effect. So, you know, you're told over and over again, narrow your audience, narrow your audience, narrow your audience, narrow your audience. And I totally agree with that. You need to have a very specific target audience in order for them to know you're talking to them, in order to be very clear of who you work with. But sometimes you start your business and then you want to grow into another audience. Maybe you want to start targeting a higher level in the market, but you don't want to alienate your previous audience. You don't want to alienate everything that you've been doing. So how do you start targeting that higher echelon, if you will, without alienating your current audience? So that's really what we're going to be talking about, is how do you play the field and target, be able to speak to multiple people at once, and still be effective in your messaging. Oh, we have a question. Jasmina says, is there a way to show yourself live in a big screen in Zoom or just a smaller window? Yes, maybe you didn't see in the beginning. Let me see if I can do it. Oh. See, now you guys can see me, I'm all big. So yes, you can do showing it just you, or it can be a small window. I don't think that you can choose the size of the window when you're sharing a screen. So it's always going to be that small video up in the corner. But, to be fair, what I think is when you're looking at a presentation, you don't necessarily, it doesn't even matter if I'm there or not. I could easily just turn off my video. But it's something I'm trying, because I kind of like having the kind of the personal aspect there of you guys seeing me talk versus just seeing me or hearing me behind when you're looking at the screen. Good. Okay, that's the only question I see. Very cool. All right. So I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your week. And I will see you next Wednesday, 12 o'clock Eastern, where we will talk about how to target multiple audiences with the trickle-down effect. So bye, everyone.